No mai haere mai. Welcome to Farmers in the Field, where our Earthworker alumni share their regenerative organic horticulture projects. Join us in co-learning through these biology-first conversations and growing radical hope through food. You can hear about our mentors in episode 1. Come join us.
Really lovely to be here with you this morning and to talk about our kaupapa. Ko Lani Rotzler-Purewa tōku ingoa, he ri tēnei no nai tūhoi no Ngāti Awa no Deutschland hoki. I te puake au ki te awa Kairangi hoki, grew up in te awa Kairangi since I was 10 in Koronui, Stokes Valley. Pretty connected to this place and love the valley. And I have the privilege of working for Papa Whakarito Trust with Jessica Hutchings, and I work for Parakore in the region. So we support whānau marae, kohana, and any rōpū really to reduce their waste and get composting and that sort of stuff. Both of those organisations are supporting me to be at the college to start, quite a big mara. Quite a big garden, which is exciting and a bit of a challenge. Just wanted to say that, there are so many expressions of kai sovereignty, and we just want to add to the conversation. We just want to grow more food, but acknowledge all the amazing work that is being done in our region. These are just some of the whānau that I get to support already in the region. And some of the kai we're growing. So at the college, that's my best friend Tina, who's a strategy whiz. We're kind of spearheading the project together and figuring things out together. That's the little field that the principal at the back has given. And so far, it kind of looks like more on the right. We've spread a bunch of mulch and we've suppressed with tarps since May, I believe, to try and get that going. But we were really keen in April to get some things planted, at least have some greens. And so we've done about 2 rows there that were just layered cardboard on top and build up soil on top, and it's working beautifully. The project wouldn't be happening without my connections and my friend Tina. And the teacher at Taita College is my uncle. So really, if it weren't for that whanaungatanga between us, we would not be there. So a real privilege to be able to go to Taita College every Tuesday and spend time with the students that are in a pūtaiao class. So their main, they spend the whole day outside in the bush. That's our little vision for what we kind of roughly want things to look like. We're hoping to have half of that space to be, beds and rows, 75 centimetre wide, 30 centimetre paths, and then kind of more of a beautiful area and shape with perennials, as well as a 3x9 hunkin that's arriving soon, tunnel house, which is really exciting to the left there. Just really privileged to work with these rangatahi. They're so onto it. And to me, this project, or to us, this project came also, as a response to climate injustices and the climate crisis. And to work with them, they know what's going on. They know that what they're doing is important. A lot of their day is spent also restoring the native bush out the back. And it's incredible the work that they've done to eradicate some of the blackberry there, removing rubbish from the stream, and that's them, the kōtero on the left, on the right there, doing a soil test that we sent off to you guys. We done some watercress transplanting because we love watercress, and all of that area in that middle photo used to be like head high. Used to be like really high with blackberries, and they've dug out all of the roots and we're now beginning to replant grasses. And that's our hope with our tunnel house, to do some native propagations. And we're just so lucky to still have like a thriving bush at that site. And we've got baby kahikatea and tōtara self-seeding themselves everywhere. so the job is, it's already rolling. Yeah, it's our hope really to stand as a Māori-led initiative that passes on cultivation skills and kai gathering skills to our students as a normal part of everyday life, as a normal life skill, to be able to share, nutrient dense, good organic grown kai with our community at a no cost, hopefully, or at a low cost. We really are thinking about an early succession plan, because we want the project to stand on its own 2 feet, and we're really hoping to get to upskill some of those rangatahi and create some well-paying jobs in the project too. Yeah, uplifting the mauri of Hinea Huone is always in my centre of my heart, to uplift our soil and to teach that from a mātauranga perspective, from an ao Māori perspective, because our tupuna, our ancestors, deeply knew the soil and knew how to nurture her, to empower whakaaro Māori as key solutions to climate injustices. And to restore the ngahere. It's such a beautiful, powerful spot to be, back, like at the back of the school, just where the bush kind of starts, because we know that when we uplift, the mauri of that ngahere of the bush, it's only going to reap rewards for the space in the garden. There's a big, there's heaps of streams as well, so it's a food basket, or it used to be. And we're hoping to bring that back. And they've seen, so the school there, they've been doing the clearing and bush restoration for a couple of years now, and they're already seeing kukopu, the mother of whitebait, come back into the area. So yeah, it just feels really, really important and positive and good. And that's us. Why is it important that our climate responses are Indigenous or Māori-led in Aotearoa? And I believe we have so much mātauranga at our fingertips through our reo. That's another thing we want to encourage, to create the mara as a reo domain. So we want to upskill ourselves so that we can stay in te reo Māori while we work and be in the garden, through terms like mate mate aone, that deeply speak to our connection to the soil, that in life and death we are the soil, whenua, our placenta, and our land, the drill. And that's one of my favorite little facts, is that Indigenous people make up less than 5% of the world's population, but we protect 80% of the world's biodiversity in spaces like Te Urewera. And as urban Māori, a lot of those rangatahi know where they're from, but we want to give opportunity in an urban setting to live and breathe that connection with our land.
I'm Sarah Smuts-Kennedy, vision holder For the Love of Bees. I'm excited to be here with our Farmers in the Field with mentor Daniel Schuurman and Levi Brinsdon-Hall. And today we're mentoring Lani, who is at Taita College.
Kia ora everybody. I'm Lani. I'm here at Taita College today in the very beginnings of our mara that we're establishing. And I completed the Earthworkers course last year at Kaisaiko in Pōneke. One of my major learnings, I feel, and that I talk about still today with our students here, is the way that carbon is cycled and nourishes the microbiome through its exudates through photosynthesis. I think it's a magical process that I want to pass on, and to just push biodiversity in our garden as we grow, so that we feed Hinea Huone through diverse exudates. So one of the pātai that we did have is we're wanting to honour the school symbol. We're wanting to honour our friends that come and visit us in the garden every time we're out here, and that's the piwai waka, the fantail. And on this piece of grass here behind us, we're wanting to create like kind of a shape of the symbol. And Catherine kind of mentioned, Sarah, that you've done some similar projects, and I just, after working at Common Unity at Epinay School, we would spend so much time just on shape maintenance and path maintenance, and I didn't like the way that rocks and bricks kind of lined the shape of a path. I didn't like having mulched paths either, because then you're constantly upkeeping the mulching, which is a lot of work. And so wondering if you guys had any suggestions on how we might maintain the shape. But actually I've just had a visitor come, my Uncle Simon, who's helping me, or who is another co-lead of this mata of this project. Kia ora. Just talking to people from Earthworkers course and giving us some advice. So they're going to chuck this up on YouTube. They can, in a while, and they're going to answer some of our pārtai. So wondering what your guys' thoughts were on maintaining some of the shapes, so that we have minimal time having to be spent on maintenance of the shape. Does that make sense?
Yes, so I just want to clarify that these shapes are going to be garden beds. They're not just flowers, they're actually part of your food production.
Yes, so we're wanting to put our blueberries in there, our raspberries and our strawberries, and potentially, a mix of things, some flowers, and wondering if you had some suggestions for particular plants that could act as those borders, or what other suggestions you might have.
So I have a similar scenario on my own domestic garden, which I'm sitting in right at the moment, and also native plantings that we have gone quite established that are surrounded by kikuia grass, and kikuia grass inevitably is the kind of bane of everybody's life. And it's getting that kind of really intense density of plant on that edge that's going to act as a, because kikuia grass will not grow, and our other plants will not grow where there's shade. So you're really looking at planning for creating on those edges the most dense, plants that grow densely and low, because obviously you want it to have low cover, because otherwise the high ones, they still come in under. And I have to say, through personal practice, I have found oregano as a herb to be one of the most successful plants over years and years. I've been here over 12 years now. It also is a prolific seeder. So that means that every single year I probably have another 20 to 30 to 50 plants that I can continue to establish. The other plant that a lot of people use that I've also found useful is comfrey. So you're using that comfrey on those edges. They will always be there, however. The thing about oregano is that if you decide to grow your beds, shift your garden beds around, you have a plan and it evolves, something like that is able to be pulled out and then you can move on. With something like a comfrey, you put it in there, it's always
You've
going
got to
to
be sure.
You've got to be sure. Levi?
Yeah, I think it's an awesome question, Lani, and just like to basically repeat what Sarah said with the comfrey. We've used comfrey on OMG where I am right now quite a lot. I actually, I'm a big advocate for people not being scared of the use of comfrey. Down the line here at the farm, so we've actually got comfrey and planted in one big massive line all the way down there, and it does an exceptional job at keeping the plants out. We've also got a line of comfrey basically where these brassicas are here, and it dies down over winter, and then in the summertime it comes up again, and it's really good. So really, in terms of what we're after in terms of making that barrier is strong root zones going down. So the other plant that I'd recommend is fennel. you can get a bulbing fennel, and on your edge, you could actually go comfrey fennel, comfrey fennel, comfrey fennel, every 10 centimeters. If you did that, figure out how many you need all along the edge, and then you've got a living comfrey fennel border. Both those plants they'll grow for a matter of years. The other thing that I'd say is that you're planning to put berries and some fruit trees and some perennials in there. Sarah's probably got great examples in her garden of basically vegetable production happening underneath and around trees and berries. The best thing that I'd say if you want to maintain it is it's not a separate area that's just got your berry plants. You can stick in all of your market garden varieties under there as well. The best thing that's going to keep out the weeds is you just intensively planting it. So you've got those species, and then just chuck in all your guilds that you're making for your market garden beds underneath them. The berries and the fruit trees, especially in those early days when you're planting them, they're only going to benefit from that diverse photosynthesis. Yeah, that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Levi. 100%. Yeah.
I'd like to make a comment on your paths. I would think of it the other way around, Lani, is in create paths that are potentially growing. So you're actually walking on, so you define your path by growing something or growing things that define the path, rather than trying to grow things that define the bed. Why not grow things to define the path? And in terms of, you have a living path rather than which is going to maintain itself. At the end of the day while you're walking over it, rather than the other way around. Your bed should be free to basically kind of roam over the edges of that path rather than trying to restrict the bed.
I hear you, Daniel, and I think it's very much the approach we're having on our other side on the market garden. But I think, listening to the call from our students, which the decision to have the feathers of the fantail shaped in those beds, I think that's also, as well as having as much green space as possible, a priority for us to honour those wishes and those ideas that they've drawn up for us. And so trying to keep to have it. I wish we could have it all just blend in together, but then we will lose that idea and that symbolism, I think.
I think you could form the shape out of the bed, if you understand what I mean. So you define the shape by defining the actual path in a growing sense. You might find it easier to define that than actually doing it within the bed. But anyway, that's, I get it. I get what you're trying to do.
So the other thing I would add to that, Lani, is that part of your shape will be height and density and texture. So things like, for example, taking on, just to throw it out there, and of course you'll take exactly what you need and discard what you don't. But things like clovers, for example, are really fantastic, and they are very low. And when they, in particular, obviously using a couple of varieties of them is always great in terms of they will all have a slightly different exudate. But if you chose simply to use a white clover, like a low growing clover, when they do flower, they will still give you your shape, but you'll still be able to use that as a growing space. The other thing I would say, Lani, is that remembering that your comfrey, for example, you're not growing necessarily a leaf for growing, but you're growing a leaf for biomass for composting. And that's a really lovely way to start thinking too, particularly in these school areas. Am I growing for food? Am I growing for biomass? Am I growing for composting? So actually starting to think that through as well. And your clover, of course, will be nitrogen fixers. And we know that if you've got mycorrhizal fungi in your garden beds, those plants will be harvesting they're able to harvest the nitrogen fixing nodules from those clover as they're growing. And so, that's another way of bringing fertility into close proximity to your plants.
Would be such a boost for our berry. I have had it on king seed, and all they have is the red clover, and it looks quite tall. I'm wondering if
it is.
buy in bulk
Yeah,
Yes, you can.
you want to go to your farming stores, your farmlands and stuff, and you can get white clover seed. I've still got some from ages ago. I purchased it. It was 1 kilo and it was $10. So you can go quite heavy-handed with that seed. And the other thing I'd recommend is exactly what Sarah said on your path. Just seed clover real hard, and then come in with mint cuttings and oregano seedlings.
Yeah.
And just make it just
wild.
Your challenge is to get something existing growing there that's going to beat whatever else is going to be there through time. So pick your species: clover, mint, and oregano, and then a comfrey, air gene, and then good luck to Kaiku you.
Thank you for reminding me of the importance of comfrey. I think it was definitely on my mind, especially now that we've planted some of our fruit trees. They need comfrey around it. Also, I don't know if you can see, but my mate in Masterton has made us up these beautiful tall composts. So we need some biomass to fill those too. And comfrey is just the answer, isn't it?
So be a little bit careful around putting comfrey around the bottom of your fruit trees. If the area is boggy, if it's naturally boggy, don't do it, because comfrey will actually hold and store, hold the waterlogging.
Yes.
So just to be a little bit wary of that. It's not the case in all instances, but some.
I'm really glad, because it is quite boggy here. I do have some concerns about that actually in our fruit trees.
Also, while we're on that, if you're going to plant comfrey and you're going to use it to harvest, you got to think, how is that harvesting going to be most efficient? So whenever I've done it here, we just put it on the edge of our vegetable rows, and they're in one long line, and then it's very, very easy task to come through and harvest it. Whereas if you got them sporadically planted around every fruit tree, it doesn't really work. You'd be better off to do one giant circle of comfrey right on the end, so you just want it real nice and easy to harvest, not sporadic.
So Lani, that's when in the course where we go through the distinctions of what's an organic practice, what's a permaculture practice, what's a biological practice. What you're looking at there is kind of permaculture thinking of efficiency of your energy inputs. How can I design this so that we are as efficiently as possible using our energy resources?
I feel like I've got a telling off coming from Daniel. But as you can see,
you've been digging.
No digging. Just some suppressing, as you can see, that we've done with tarps there. That was like in June, April, and we have minimal, no funding, and I got them given for free. And we just wanted to get rid of the grass so that come springtime we're ready. But obviously what's happened is it's become boggy and soggy, and as you know from our soil test results, we're quite clay heavy, and I think we've kind of suppressed out all of the life underneath there. And so I'm thinking, do we when we Daniel's recommended gypsum and lime, when we put that on our whenua, do we broad fork it a little bit? Do we dig?
We'll leave this to Daniel to answer.
Hi, Lani. Yeah, I mean, your soil test came back at really, really, really low in calcium. So 35% base saturation, where the ideal target is 68%. And that basically screams that the soil is not able to drain or breathe, because your magnesium potassium levels were kind of okay. Potassium could be a little bit higher, but magnesium was around 12%. So it's basically screaming out for calcium to open that soil up. And it's the reason that soils that have that sort of really low deficient in calcium will not drain or breathe properly. And so covering it up to kill the grass off, as you're well aware, has negatives associated with it. But in a wet winter, when you've got lots of rain, that'll be getting into that space regardless. So lots of water. Is you really going to create highly anaerobic conditions. Now, all of that sort of stuff can be recovered from. The answer when sticking in, what I would do with lime is put lime into that situation. I think the maximum that we could put in there was something like 33 kilos of lime per 100 square meters. So that's like 3 kilos per 10 square meters. That's the max that you can put in. That won't be all that's necessary over a period of time. You'll have to add more next year for argument's sake, but that's the most you can do at the moment. That'll take time to work. If it's really, really struggling with moisture or sort of being still too wet, and you've got to kind of potentially look at keeping any runoff or surface water running into that site. So you might have to have a little bit of a sort of drainage dug to sort of, if water's sort of running into the site, to try and help it a little bit more. So that's where you might dig something like a surface drain. If water is just sitting there and not going anywhere, you've got to try and help it get away. You've got lots of, I see wood mulch on the site there. You do need carbon. You do need carbon, and you do need potassium. So having that sort of stuff at this stage, early stage, because your organic matter was only like 4%, so you're starting with pretty low levels of calcium and organic matter, and so adding that wood chip there, but you've really got to get it to rot down, and getting some compost into that site. If you put all that together and you're spreading lime into that, there's really no need to be digging. Ideally, we want to avoid, where absolutely possible, any sort of digging, if we can. So layering up basically on top of that, potentially with the lime at the bottom of that process is where you want to start. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And the rain will actually, the rain will draw the calcium into the soil system in any case. Just to articulate for people who may be coming to the Farmers in the Field for the first time, the reason you will have heard on some of them that we actually suggest not putting the wood chips down. And here we're encouraging Lani to put the wood chips down. Now that's very specifically to do with their soil tests. And Daniel, do you just want to expand on, you talked about the minerals coming out of the wood chip, but can you just explain that a little bit for those who may not have come across that idea before?
Well, wood chip on its own, as it rots down, I mean, the important thing is really that the wood chip is rotted before it goes into that space, unless you're going to use it only as paths. But if you're going to use it on the beds, as it breaks down, wood chip will produce or has a high level of potassium in it. It doesn't have a huge number of other minerals. It has obviously a full range of minerals, but the big difference is going to make to your soil in two areas, and one is in potassium and the other one is in organic matter. So as it breaks down, it'll form organic matter. But it does take a while for that process to happen, and generally you want that process starting of it breaking down before you kind of put it too much into the site, because what it does otherwise is it sucks in the nitrogen that's available to actually help that carbon nitrogen ratio of the wood chip to as it breaks down. It needs nitrogen basically to break that carbon down, and if you put it in too early into the system, you end up soaking up all the nitrogen that's available, and so the plants will really struggle in that sort of environment if there's sort of all the nitrogen being soaked up by the wood chips. But yeah, that process it's useful, providing you understand the need for it to sort of break down. If you're putting it just in paths, obviously that's different, because you're actually wanting that process to happen in the path slowly, and that's sort of keeping your feet out of the wet areas and that sort of stuff, having somewhere to spread the weight of you walking up and down constantly. That can be a good start to that process. But as it breaks down, you can actually start planting stuff in it. Is that kind of what you meant, Sarah?
Yes, and I just wanted to articulate, so we've had other farms that we're mentoring by Farmers of the Field that you will see where we've suggested no, don't use the wood chip, and that is because their organic matter is already way too high and their potassium levels are way too high, so it would have a really detrimental to effect on those farms. In this instance, where both of those minerals are low, it's actually going to be beneficial. So in order for you to break that down, you want to put it in a pile. If you have some BAM, which is the facultative microbes, you could spray that on and you could cover that and actually really fast track the breaking down of particularly the carbon in those wood chips before you put them on, remembering that carbon is like a sponge. So it actually, at the first stage, it actually soaks up all the nutrition around it into it so that it can in fact break down. And as Daniel says, one of the ones that will soak up is nitrogen, and you need that nitrogen to be accessible to your plants, not being soaked up like a sponge into the carbon source.
Yeah, thanks for that sponge analogy. I'm gonna relay that to our students.
Yeah, and like any sponge, Lani, when it becomes full, it won't absorb anymore.
Yeah,
right. So then that's when it breaks down, and then 6 months later, 8 months later, you've got a weed in your path again. That's what's happening there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think I am concerned that we're going to go too hard on the mulching and the organic matter, but I'm also concerned that if we don't use it to build up hard enough, that we're just going to boggy problem.
Lani, as Daniel said to you, your organic matter is so low at the moment. You don't need to worry about that.
Cool. Perfect. Exciting.
The other thing is that the calcium, the addition of the calcium is going to help with your drainage. And when you do have to be very careful if those wood chips aren't broken down. Like if you're going to plant into that area, then just make sure you've raked off most of them, apart from the fine layer of wood chips, and they should be black. They should be black and broken down. You'll find when you pile wood chips on top of soil, it kills off all the grass and the weeds, etc. That's its prime job, because it's soaking up all that nutrition from the soil, as we've just explained. And then it's very important that you do rake off a whole lot of those wood chips before you plant into that, just down to that nice area. And then dense photosynthesis, plants are going to add your calcium, and the plants should.
I think what we'd like to do is maybe do one row cover crop and one row ready for planting, one row cover crop, so that we can see the difference and still have some area to be growing. But having some cover crops in the middle.
The other thing as well, if you're thinking of doing cover crops, is just sow broad beans. They're phenomenal. They grow so well this time of year. You can underseed them with wildflowers and oats, whatever you like, other cover crop mixes, but then you actually get a harvest from them. So just don't discount that your cover crop can't be edible. Just sow broad beans and borlotto beans as well. Borlotto beans, you sow them now, you'll get them ready for Christmas CSA boxes, and they're beautiful.
Okay, appreciate your guys' mentorship and ideas and guidance and time. Really cool. And looking forward to another crops with you, Levi. It was really helpful. See you again.
If you are inspired to become an earthworker and learn more about regenerative organic horticulture, look up our Earthworkers Programme on our website to register for our upcoming courses. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support us in making more, we welcome donations on our website fortheloveofbees.co.nz. For the Love of Bees is a charitable trust creating a system of self-sustaining urban farms in Aotearoa that cultivate quality food for local people through regenerative organic horticultural practices that heal the ecosystem. Through these sites, we create happier and healthier ecosystems and resilient, connected communities. We also create and share high-quality, accessible educational experiences around what a truly regenerative world looks like. For the Love of Bees aims to become a world-leading example of partnership, regeneration and participation for a thriving collective future. We started in 2016 as an optimistic and love-centred approach to engaging with ecosystem well-being in a time of climate uncertainty.